Hey guys, and welcome back to the Natty scene. We are joined by a guest today, just one guest, and it is the Darren Loxton, who runs Coach DSL as well. Darren himself is, for anyone who doesn't know Darren, is a competitive bodybuilder who's competed on a British level and a world level too. So he's a very experienced athlete. And also, like I said, he runs Coach DSL, who basically works with a wider variety of clients, but you will probably, if you do know of Darren, know him well for coaching quite a few clients to the stage within drug-free federations. And he's been doing that for several years. And of course, gained a wealth of experience through doing that. Darren also, alongside that, is a very good poser himself, in my opinion. Always has a fantastic routine, always stands out in terms of presentation when it comes to even just the mandatory poses. And that was, I think, when I first saw Darren posing in like 2015 and 2014, I think as well. It might have actually have been 2014. I knew that at one point I wanted to go to Darren for my own posing, and I did in 2017. Gave me a very honest critique of my physique at that time, which was very much needed. And yeah, played a pretty pivotal role in my understanding of posing within that year, which obviously allowed me to be fairly successful within 2017. So yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, Darren. And yeah, I hope you're well.
I'm very well, mate. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Awesome. So as I said to Darren, we've got a little bit of structure to questions. We've also got some listener questions that I've thrown in the mix into this series of topics that we're going to cover. We are in this podcast pretty much going to cover just posing and presentation. So Scott, I hate to kill off your question, man, but didn't read the post. Low carb day apparently for Scott. Scott we're referencing to is Scott Jazzard, who is one of Darren's clients and a very, very good heavyweight bodybuilder. So if you don't know Scott, then check him out. But I thought I'd just give him a shout out there. I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
He will.
So basically, first of all, obviously I gave the listeners a little bit of an idea as to what level of competitor you are, but just to give a little bit more of a background, could you just tell the listeners how long you've been in the sport of bodybuilding, when your first show was, and sort of how you've gained this level of experience that you have now? Just give a bit of background.
Yeah, sure. I was introduced to natural bodybuilding in 2007. I was 31, so I didn't know natural bodybuilding really existed. You know, go back to 2007. There wasn't really, social media wasn't there, so we didn't have that understanding of what was going on. Someone, a good friend of mine now, who was at the gym, spoke to myself and Rob Waterhouse, as most people would probably know. He said to us, "Look, you should probably do a show." And we were just like, "Behave, you know, we're not bodybuilders." Now, our perception of bodybuilder was Flex magazine, which was on the counter. That was our perception of bodybuilding.
Yep.
We were told natural scene was on the, you know, was coming up. It was getting bigger. We went and watched the show, and that was it. Hook, line, and sinker. Just kind of fell in love with it there and then. You know, my thing with bodybuilding was very much about the aesthetic, artistry of it. You know, it was, you know, look how these guys look. Nothing to do with being big, nothing to do with, you know, muscle size, just how elegant they were. And there was some fun. I don't remember who was competing, other than one guy called Sean Ferguson. That's the only guy I can remember competing. Kerry Napier did the guest spot. But I was just blown away. I was blown away by the potential of possibly looking like that. I didn't know whether I could, but I wanted that challenge. I've always been competitive. 2008, we embarked straight away on an off season. Of course, off season being just eat everything. Let's see how heavy we can get before we start dieting next year. No structure, no nothing. 2008, we embarked, myself and Rob, on our first comp prep with some guidance from a friend of ours, James House. And that was it. Just, we went to the BMBF Scottish. I qualified in 3rd place for the British. And I kind of think that was probably that pivotal point. You know, getting an invite to the British finals in my first year just made me believe that maybe I could do this. Maybe I was a bodybuilder. Maybe I could compete at this level.
Yeah.
And that was it. Just every year since then, my whole drive has been to just be improvements. So fast forward, competed every other year apart from 2016, where I had a family bereavement. So then shuffled that one to 17, then I went 19, and then obviously now here we are. Qualified for the British finals every year, always placed at the British finals. Top second was my best in 2014, then went on Worlds and took second place at the Worlds in 2014. So bodybuilding was always something for me that I was always wanting. If I can't be competitive, I would then maybe take a back seat in it. But I've always found that bodybuilding has given me that outlet with my training. It's not necessarily the reason I bodybuild. I train because I just love training. Bodybuilding just gives me that extra level of focus. And of course, right from the very, very beginning, I needed to be able to present myself better because I've never been big. I never will be big. I'll never be the biggest guy on stage. I remember your comments after Body Power. And you spoke to me afterwards and said, I don't know how you do it, but you walk out on stage and you don't look very much. And then you pose and you just look huge.
Yeah,
You just grow. When you pose, you grow. And that's what posing is for me. Posing is that ability to make the most of your physique. I will never be able to battle with the big guys on size. So I have to look at how I can do that in posing. So that's kind of a little bit of a background on me. Not retired yet, but we'll I'm not. There's no date. There's no date for a return in the calendar just yet.
Fantastic. So yeah, I do actually remember that at Body Power. I do remember seeing you at that show, and I think that's when I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to Darren for posing this year. So yeah, that was fantastic. In terms of coaching wise, so you got into bodybuilding 2007, 2008. When was it that you first took a client to stage? What was the first year that you took a client to stage?
So that would have been 2010.
Nice.
Not as a coach. Just when I first started coaching people to get on stage, it was just people in the gym, just people like Darren, you've done it. What can I do? I want to do it. What should I do? And I never charged people. It was just a matter of, okay, well, this is what I did. I would, at that point, of course, I became a student of coaching instantly. I was given a plan. I was given someone else's plan of this is what you should do. And I instantly realized that this wasn't necessarily for me. I need to tweak this. I need to now become a student of coaching, of bodybuilding coaching, of course. So I tweaked it. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of asking. Back then it was all forums. So I was the guy on forums asking every question. It's like that was our platform, and whether I probably did annoy a lot of people with my questions, but I don't care. I want to know, like, how did you do that? Why did you do that? How much water? How much carbs? Why did you do that? I quickly become a very, very good understanding of why the mechanics of it, the biology of it, because our bodies are very, very different, but fundamentally we're all the same. Our bodies work the same, but with tweaks left and right. That's my belief.
Yeah.
So I quickly started helping other people with no charge. And then I realized that maybe I should be. When I was working at the gym, when I owned the gym, I didn't coach a lot of people because I didn't have time. Very time consuming. You know that. You cannot have a full-time job and coach lots of people full time because you just can't give them what they need. Agreed. You can be half-assed and you can just, you can guide people, but you can't really coach people. It wasn't really, I would say the last 5 years is really when I've started coaching more because I've invested the time into people. But straight away, 2010, I think I took my first clients to stage in 2010. And they all did very well. But we know full well that bringing someone to stage isn't necessarily, I didn't do very well. They had potential to do well. I just guided them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the quick success, but that was a success from everyone's point of view, not just from me.
For sure. For sure. It's like, I've had people say to me about last year, they've said, oh, wow, you really came, everything came together for you as a coach last year. And I'm like, well, to be honest, I just got a really lucky card in terms of the people that I attracted within that year. I got lots of people with, not going to lie, very good work ethics and very good genetics. And when you have that combination, you look like you're $1 million coach, but in reality, you've just got great people who are working hard on your principles. One of the things that I think is really cool about your coaching, not to stray away too far from getting into posing questions, but I think from listening to the fact that you got into coaching back then, and it was just with people that you were coaching for free, which I think is immense, and also in person, like you were seeing them. I think that's something that I've seen with your coaching that I've taken as much inspiration as I can from, is trying to see my clients as much in person as possible, because I see you do that. You know, people travel to you, they pose in your studio setup, and I think that's something that goes missing a lot now within online coaches that have a lot of clients. They never see them in person. They see them on show day and they're like, oh, you're a bit off the mark compared to what I thought you were. And I've even had that with clients last year that I had. I was like, damn, like those photos look quite different to what it looks like when you're moving and when you start putting poses together. So I think that's something great that you've done, mate.
And the other way around, you know, I've had check-in videos from clients, and I've gone, you should be really a bit further ahead than where you are. In my mind, I'm thinking, you know, you should be tighter. I thought you'd be tighter, but I'm seeing you on the weekend, so it's okay. We're not going to change anything. Well, and I haven't made any changes because I'm seeing them in 3 days. They come in and I go, yeah, we're good. We don't need to make changes, because the video was rubbish, because maybe the lighting bounced off them. Maybe it washed them out a little bit, looked a little bit flat that day. So seeing people in person is something that, you know, especially with posing. Coaching is obviously very, very similar, but with posing, you know, I do Zoom posing. But I find that I can Zoom pose with people who have a better understanding of where their body parts are. But for some people, I just need to grab hold of them. I just need to move them. You know, move your elbows. You know, no, just half an inch. Okay, no, half an inch. So sometimes, you know, that person thing, that getting hold of someone, and which is why I do the free posing clubs once a month. Obviously, not in lockdown, we're not allowed to do them. But the free posing clubs, you know, I do them once a month. I don't do them for any federation. I know it's a BNBF posing club, but posing club that I do, it's my posing club. Vicky asked me whether I'd affiliate it to BNBF. Great, I'm happy to do that. But getting people there and just being able to get hold of them, it makes a big bit. And I know you've sent plenty of clients to the clubs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Then there's one locally in Yorkshire that John runs, isn't there? So
yeah, absolutely.
And John, I remember John John literally gave me my first ever bit of bodybuilding feedback in 2014 at the BNBF Derby show. I remember going up to him and saying, you know, what do I need to do? And obviously it's a normal judges situation, you know, they've seen so many physiques, and but he did remember me, and I remember that being a really cool moment. So, and I always say hi to John at the show, so I should really pop by, and I'll definitely go to the next one that's open, and go to the clinic. So yeah, in terms of moving into posing questions, so my first question to you is, did posing itself come naturally to you when you started bodybuilding? And how much is posing naturally influenced? So just a bit more background on that. Like, do you think that people that come from different backgrounds of different sporting events come to you and then naturally are really good posers? Or do you think that sometimes across the board, it is a learned practice?
I think a bit of both. I think massively. So first part of the question, did it come natural to me? Absolutely, it did. However, if you look back at my first set of pictures from stage, you would disagree. Because
okay,
although it felt natural, and so my background's in martial arts. I was a second dan black belt at the age of 18.
Okay.
So I've always been, always been good at moving my body. And posing's about moving your feet. Posing's about moving your feet first and foremost. Everything else just lends itself. But if you can't move your feet, you're screwed. So I could move my feet well. So I could pose well. And I was comfortable. I was fluent. And comfortable is the main ingredient here. But the aspects of perfecting it took time, took a lot of study, took a lot of work. Although I was natural at it and I picked the posing up very, very, very quickly, I do believe that there are, from a lot of people's perspective, I've had clients who are dancers, people who are just athletes. And I always find that people who are naturally athletic pose better. I have clients that literally on their own admission have 2 left feet. In fact, some of them have like 5 left feet. And they're a struggle. And it doesn't matter how good a coach you are. I had someone stand on stage last year and his posing was terrible. But this guy posed every week with me, every week for about 15 weeks. No, his posing was terrible, but if you'd have seen him 15 weeks ago, it was horrendous. So to get on stage and just be not a good poser was a victory. But he just didn't come natural. It didn't click for him. That's not my fault. That's the fact that every time he walked in, he didn't know where his left foot was. Rotate your right foot. No, your right foot. No, okay. Oh, what, that one? Yeah, that one. So it's a little thing, but very much, just in a nutshell, yeah, I absolutely did find it natural. I find that people from an athletic background definitely find posing easier, but that comes down to the ability to move their feet for me. If they can move their feet well, then they'll generally pose well.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I've always thought that it is like people who are gymnasts and people who have full body, almost intuitive, like mind to body sort of connections, hand-eye coordinations or foot-eye coordinations or whatever you want to call it, are better naturally at posing. And I guess I was never really involved massively in too many sports when I was younger. My main sport was motorsport, but with motorsport, you have to be very hand, eye, and foot coordinated all at the same time. So it was something that I needed a lot of tweaks to my posing, but it never felt really awkward at the same time. So yeah, and there's some people like me, I'm sure you've seen plenty, but clients just send you progress photos and you're like, just what are you doing? Like, what is happening here? But yeah, it's just a matter of time and learning it. So in terms of beginning bodybuilding posing, and we'll go into a little bit on other classes as well, because as we could talk for hours about different classes and things like that, but we'll stick mainly with bodybuilding. So it is quite a daunting task when you're approached with multiple poses, the quarter turns and the muscularity rounds. Where do you think, when trying to break down and get your sort of initial poses set, where do you think people should begin? Should they begin at a specific set of poses and make them better and work from there, or how should they start?
But if someone comes to me and they've never posed before,
yeah,
I only introduce them. If we're talking bodybuilding, I only introduce them. Even figure competitors, same thing.
Yeah,
I only introduce them to quarter turns.
Okay.
So I never posed before. Let's not throw too much at you straight away. Let's just work on quarter turns. Okay, let's say you nail your first rotation of quarter turn, bang on. Great. Okay, it come natural. Okay, I would then introduce. So it would be very, very personal. Okay. But my mindset would be, okay, I'm just going to do quarter turns with you. Let's see how we go with that. Depend on the success of the quarter turns. Will depend on how long we spend on quarter turns, or how quickly progress onto the second set. So it is individual for everyone. I do find that it's a bit of a mix. I've got clients now who are probably 4 or 5 weeks into their posing practice, and we're still on quarter turns. But yeah, so I would always just start quarter turn, and I would start quarter turns without any in-depth instruction. It would be the basics of You've got to firstly understand, what poses do I need to know? I don't need to do them perfect today. So one of the things I say to everyone when they come to a posing club is, today we're going to pose to enable you to go to the next level of your posing. Whatever level you're at, I just want you to go to the next level. If you come and you don't know nothing, today I just want you to know what you need to do. I don't need you to be able to do it. If you can quarter turn, okay, now your quarter turns, you know what to do. Now I want you to know where your feet need to be exactly. Where does your knee need to be? Where does your shoulder to hip ratio need to be? Where do your hips need? First and foremost, I'm not even worried whether your feet are facing in the right direction. I just want you to know what the poses are. At your level, it would be fine critique. It would be, I need your knee pointing in this direction. I need your belly button pointing in this direction. If your belly button and knee are not in this direction, and your hip, your glute and your hamstring is not going to be showing the way you want it. So it would be fine detail. But all that, can you imagine setting someone up and going, okay, well, it would be like teaching them how to squat and putting 100 kilos on the bar.
Yeah.
It's like, break it right down, break it right down. And no tension. Don't tense anything. Just create shape. Because the biggest problem with posing is people work too hard. Mm. It's like, why are you sweating? Relax. I just want to create shape. Just create shape first. We'll add all the other bits in later. So it is very much about breaking things down for me. Introduce things at the level in which you're at. Whatever level that you're at, we just want you to go to the next level.
Perfect. Awesome. So moving on away from starting posing and starting to critique the poses a little bit more and breaking them down. So might be a bit of a lengthy question, but just maybe give a few segments to each pose. So if we break down each male bodybuilding pose and obviously women's bodybuilding pose, and you can kind of include the quarter turns, obviously, as by part of figure. What are the main issues that you see arising, and what do you see on stage or when clients come to you, the main issues with each pose? So if we break them down, we go through all the symmetry round and the muscularity round. What are the main issues that you keep seeing within each pose?
I think this is really easy, and we can hit this in a nutshell. Okay. For pose, people create too much tension and make themselves look small. It's like, what are we doing? We're on stage. Be big. Now, to be big, you need to lift up and open up. If you're worried about your abs showing and you're crunching into your ab pose whilst trying to hit a front double bicep, well, I'm sorry, you look small. Yeah. So in a nutshell, it's the same with every pose: side chest, side tricep, front double, front lat spread. People trying to be tight. People trying to contract so much. If you take a most muscular shot, if you're most muscular shot, if you push in, and I see people coaching this, right? Push your hands together, squeeze everything together, get every line out in your chest. Oh, but you know what? You've just gone from being that wide to that wide because you pushed everything in, and now you look like a pea head. No. Okay, you're shredded. You're on stage. You're in shape. Stay big. Hit your most muscular. Lift up. Open up. Keep your shoulders wide, and create tension through squeezing and contracting the muscle, not by condensing things. That is the same for every pose. Side chest. Most people are guilty of this on side chest. Trying to get this side of the pec big. And they draw that shoulder in. Okay, it's now hard. Great. But look how narrow you've made yourself. You need to draw that shoulder back and keep that shoulder out. Keep that width across there. You should be in shape. You can create tension by squeezing the muscle without pulling everything in. Who makes themselves look bigger on a side chest? Only the top guys. Most people make themselves look smaller on a side chest shot because they push everything together. And they do that, and I'll tell you why they do it. And it's the same for most people. When they're out of shape, they're trying to look for lines and condition when they're out of shape. So they practice trying to be tight when they're out of shape, rather than just creating shape. When you're posing right now, leading into your show, 22 weeks out, however many it is, you shouldn't be looking for condition.
Yeah.
You should be trying to create lovely shape. When you're in shape, condition's going to be there. But what happens is you practice so much, looking for lines, squeezing everything together, you then do that as second nature. It becomes a motor skill. When you step on stage, it becomes natural. So one of the things I have to really drum into most people is to stop making themselves small. Just be big. Lift up. Open everything out. Let your condition on stage be what makes you look hard, not condensing. So I would say that covers every pose. I don't think there's a single pose that people don't do that on.
That's fantastic, mate. I think some of the stuff you said there is perfect, and even got me thinking about some of the things that I'm doing. I think even now I think about that side chest tweak that you just talked about there, and I'm already doing that. I'm already trying to like lock everything together too much. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people will take a lot away from that. And you sometimes think, you see physiques, drug-free physiques on stage creating crazy shape. And then that's why, people say, oh, they can't be natural. They can't be that big natural. But they're posing better than probably some people who have, 60 pounds of muscle more than them, and can create so much more shape. And as a result, give the illusion of size through shape. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. And one of the things that I've seen you do as well, and again, something that I learned from yourself is posing actually without, showing your physique. So posing clothes. So if you could just talk a little bit about why you think sometimes that's beneficial, and when you'd use that. Do you use that more so in the off season, or do you pose clothed and practice during your prep as well?
Yeah, so there's both. Yeah, it's all of the above, really. I think a lot of people, like, fundamentally, we want to look at ourselves. Okay, we're bodybuilders. It's natural. It's okay to say you like looking in the mirror, but there's that fine balance. I think if you bear in mind, you don't have a mirror on stage, so you have to first and foremost become comfortable with posing and creating the shape that you want without a mirror. So why do you need to take your clothes off for that? It's like, you can't see it anyway. You're just doing it. The main reason I do it, I tell you how I started doing it. I started doing it because it was in a contest prep years and years ago, and I wasn't happy with how I looked, and it was getting me down. So I thought, I'll do my posing practice then. I won't strip off. And I felt good. And I left that session actually in a better mood. And I was like, because, like, when you're 15 weeks out, you're not big anymore. You're not shredded. Yeah. You're in that minefield of, I look crap. Have I made any gains? Have I made any progress? I'm still look rubbish. You don't look rubbish. You just look rubbish for your own perception. Yeah. You're not fat, but you feel fat because your own level of expectation is not met yet. You have this perception of where you want to be. You're not there. You'll be patient. So I started doing it. Long and short, I started doing it because it was affecting my mindset. So I started keeping my clothes on. I then found that really helped me. It then helped me with my connection of where I needed to be. So then I started doing it in phases. I started posing with my clothes on, taking my clothes off and closing my eyes, recording it, of course, recording my posing, closing my eyes. It takes a little bit getting used to, you don't fall over. And then I would open my eyes and watch myself. So I would do it in stages because I needed to know when you're on stage, you look back at your first ever stage pictures. You didn't think that your elbows were down there and your bicep shot, right? You thought they were perfect, but they weren't. They were down there. And it's because you didn't practice enough and you didn't get a motor skill to know where it felt like bang when your arm was in the right position. So you need to create that motor skill and that ability to feel when it's in the right place. People don't do that because they always look at themselves. So you need to strip back the mirror, stop looking at yourself. But then moving on, I do it now because it's about stage fitness. It's about being up there when the head judge calls another round. Okay, we need to see you again, guys. Let's spin you around. And everyone's going, wow, I'm smoked already. You know, I don't want to do another round. So people just don't pose enough. You know, you gotta, it's like boxing. You know, boxers don't train for 12 rounds. They train for 50, 100 rounds. In the inevitability that they go to 12 and they'll still be strong in 12. Same posing. Pose with the inevitability of doing 10 rounds. Can you, AJ, do 10 rounds of posing?
Not right now, mate. Not right now, no.
Nor could I, but but I could if you asked me to on stage day.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. You know, I will say, posing fitness is probably one of my biggest bugbears with my clients, other people's clients. You know, just people on stage. You can see people that have put the rounds in. You can see it. You know, and if I can see it, you're damn right the judges can see it. You know, because they're in a better seat than I am. So I do it fundamentally now because I get out of bed in the morning. I do not get dressed. I stand in the kitchen. There's no mirrors in the kitchen. And I run through my quarter turns and I run through my muscularity rounds every morning on prep. It feels crap.
Yeah.
Nothing feels good when you get out of bed. You're flat. You're tight. You're a little bit lethargic. So you don't really want to look at yourself anyway because you look flat anyway. So there's no point in looking at yourself. That's just going to get you down anyway. So might as well keep your clothes on and do it in the kitchen with no mirrors. So I think posing with no mirrors and then introducing mirrors and then having that section where you a little bit with mirrors, a little bit without mirrors. But more importantly, everyone these days has a phone. There's absolutely no reason you shouldn't be recording every posing session when you're stripped down, recording every posing session. Just to look back and see how awful you look. And make critique.
Yeah.
Have that critique, you know, have someone that can critique it for you as well. Someone that's going to look at it and be objective in where you are and what you're doing. But fundamentally, mirrors just create bad habits. You know, I've got clients saying, all my clients will tell you, when they pose for me on a check-in, first thing if they're looking in a mirror when they're doing it, I scream at them. What are you looking at? Stop looking at yourself. Like, I'm here. What are you looking over there for in the mirror? You don't even look good in that mirror when the camera's over there. So it's like, get rid of the mirrors when you're posing. Bring them in when it's needed. Use your phone. Put it down. Spin it around so you can't see yourself. Don't do it on selfie mode. You've got to be able to critique yourself. You've got to be able to look at what you look like. But most important, you've got to be able to pose without that mirror on stage.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think again in 2017 you told me about posing fitness, and it was one of the first times I'd heard a little bit more about it. I think yourself and also through following Jeff Alberts, who preached quite a lot about posing with poise, as opposed to posing like you're trying to show everything off too heavily and basically just running out of gas. And that is something that, again, for the listeners to know, you know, how that impacted me. Well, when I got to the finals and we were doing more rounds of judging, I was able to consistently present myself without getting excessive cramp or my tan running or me getting like poorer and poorer as the rounds go on and just getting lazy and making mistakes because I was running out of breath. And that's happened to me in the past. You know, I've gotten lazy and made mistakes because I felt tired. But when it comes easy and you've practiced it so often, it looks so different on stage, and you're running through your poses like it's nothing. And you can concentrate then on making sure that the whole presentation is bang on.
Bringing it back to that finals, AJ, you probably look better in your last rotation than you did in your first rotation.
That's cool.
But and that should be the way it is. And the reason being is you fill out. So if you pose 4 or 5 rotations and you're still fit and strong at the end, you probably look better because you are drawing that water into the muscle as well. You are getting fuller. You're getting a better pump. So if you've got more fullness and hardness in your last rotation, not only are you still looking great, you're looking better.
Yeah.
So I had him tied maybe with this guy, but now that guy is absolutely smoked. He's now no longer looking good. He's looking better. My scorecard's decided.
Yeah.
I'm not going to score. My scorecard's not decided in the first rotation. No judges, unless there's someone walks out and they're just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They just write their scores down on the last rotation, not the first.
Yeah.
So that decision. So you step up on that last rotation and you're looking the best you've looked because you've got fuller and you're still presenting yourself perfectly. The likelihood is you're going to get a nudge up.
Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. So I want to cover a couple of things on the rear poses. So first of all is the discussion of tuck or no tuck. And this is to do with the glutes. Yep. So the first ever experience of this that I had for the listeners was my second year competing, 2015, when I got some more direct feedback from Vicky. And she said how I was, because I just won the teen Midlands. And she said, don't tuck at the finals. And I was like, what's that mean? Because I think she said on one of my photos that I look like a scared dog. She says that to everyone that tucks. And so I then obviously asked her what she meant by it and started playing about with the way I tilted my hips. So if you could give your thoughts on that, whether you think that everyone should suit that style of posing where you posturally tilt your hips, or whether you find some people do need to tuck to show something else. So give your thoughts.
I think glute development has a massive role to play in this. If you have zero glute development and you tuck, you will look awful. It's simple. And the reason being is when you tuck with no glute development, you completely lose your glutes. Now, I know why you tucked. It's the same reason why everyone else tucks, because they want to show condition. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you've got striated glutes, it's who doesn't want to show striated glutes? However, when you have better development, you can tuck without it looking like a tuck. Yep. Because you have better glutes. So you'll still have that curve. And the reason a tuck looks awful on most people is because it flattens out your lower back. So it's not necessarily a tuck for your glutes' sake. It's a getting rid of the tuck to help your back presentation. So when you push your hips backwards, you will create tension through your lower back. So your erectors at the bottom will fire. Your lower lat will fire. I can get people to bring out their lower back without actually tensing their back. You shouldn't be tensing your back on stage. This is a big thing as well. Your back doesn't need tension. You need to create tension through posture. So to do that, you need to roll your hips back and lift your chest. Roll your hips back, lift your chest. You will instantly create tension through your back.
I can already feel that now, just like doing it here, yeah.
And now your back is on.
Yeah.
So now you don't have to worry about it. That's set, that's done. Less effort going into tensing my back. I've created it. Now you can focus on what's important, hamstring tension. When people tuck, it's very hard to contract hamstrings. If you've got good hamstrings, you need to create that open arc. You need to lift your knees out and you need to draw your heels in. By lifting your knees out and drawing your heels in, you can create tension through your hamstrings. But then that takes it away from your glutes. If you push your hips back in that position, your glutes will also fire. So you can create tension through your glutes by activating your hamstrings, not the other way around. And a lot of people focus too much on glute activation. They lose their back control. They lose their back position. They lose their structure, and they lose their hamstrings. So we need to spin it around. Create hamstrings. That will fire your glutes. Push your glutes back. That will fire your back. Lift your chest. That will open you up. So you create that posterior chain tension through activation rather than a direct movement. Does a tucked glute look good? I think it looks bloody awesome as a transition.
Before you hit the rear poses?
Absolutely. If you've got absolutely diced in glutes, why wouldn't you? But then once you've shown them off and everyone's seen them, then hit the pose properly.
Yeah.
Because if you keep your glutes tucked, it will take away from a good shot.
Yeah.
I used to tuck. I used to tuck because shredded glutes used to be the holy grail for me as well. You know, it's like, why wouldn't you? It's like, how do I make my glutes look the best? Well, you tuck them.
Yeah,
and I want that picture.
yeah.
So yeah, but I think you should tuck them, show them if you've got them, and then push your hips back out. If you tuck your glutes to create tension, because some people find it hard to create tension to their glutes while pushing the hips back. If you engage your glutes from a tuck position, then set your legs, you can often find that balance between pushing them back enough so they're not tucked and still keeping them engaged. So often people have to tuck to get that control. It's not the same for everyone. I've got people who I'll say, right, draw your heel in to create hamstring tension, and they don't get it. So say, okay, well, push your toes out instead. Got it. So sometimes people need to stimulate through different areas. Often glutes are very, very dependent on the muscularity. If you got glutes like Mark Claxton, like, you don't need to worry about it.
It's funny because I was literally just about to give him as an example, because I asked him how he balances it, because I've always thought I thought he tucks because his glutes looked so good from the back. I was like, surely he's tucking them, but he told me he's not. He's just got that really good balance of, like you said, setting them up so that it almost looks like he's tucking them from the back, but he's actually still posteriorly tilting, so his back still has that shape. I think that is like the perfect balance that you need to nail. Like, you know, David Kay's another example of someone who has massive glutes and can just nail it from the back, where it looks like he's still got fully striated glutes all the way up, but they're tilted.
If you notice how he does it, if you ever watch, like a lot of bodybuilders won't watch these things, and I watch these things when I see people pose. I always look at the little intricacies. I know how David Kay sets his glutes. He sets them through his feet and hamstrings. You can see him doing it. If you watch him hit a rare shot, first thing he'll do is he'll set his feet, he'll rotate his toes out, tuck his heels in, and you'll see it fire up. You'll see his hamstrings come in and his glutes activate. Because his glutes aren't activated instantly, you'll see it as a process of, you know, when we pose, I always say, set your feet, set your feet. It's like, set your feet first and it will all come up. So you need to watch how people do it and watch how people activate these shots. You know, little things like that make a big difference in your own personal posing. And it's things that I took on board when I was watching people pose. You know, how are they doing that? And if you don't know, if you can't work it out, go and ask them.
Yeah.
Like, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that's like, oh, how does he do that? Well, he stood over there. Like, Dave, how do you activate your hamstrings, mate? He'll tell you.
Yeah.
You know, so it is very much be observant, watch people when they're doing it. But glutes are, and it's a funny thing, glutes are so sought after, yet it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it matters to the whole picture. And I believe it does as well.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Great answer. So my second question is about the rear lat spread. So you see a lot of people absolutely smash up the rear lat spread in a bad way. And just, it's so painful to watch, because you know this person has a great back because they can present it from the front. They can maybe do a front lat spread and a front relaxed and have, boom, great lats. And they turn to the back and they can't open up. What do you think are the most common issues when it comes to being able to open up in the rear lat spread pose?
Most people treat them as two separate poses. Same pose.
That's what I've been taught recently. Yeah.
So a lot of times, and this does happen a lot, and I see it with people that come to me. So I will just get them to do a front lat spread and turn them around and go, okay, got it right? Have you got it? I go, yeah. Right, now reactivate it. facing this way, and they do the same thing again. They do a different pose.
Yeah.
It's that activation. So I find that people, when they do a rear lat spread, they are focusing on contracting their back because you can now see it. And coming back to what I said a minute ago, you don't contract your back on back shots. You create position, and then you let your hips and your chest create tension. So your tension should come from postural position, not from muscular contraction. So if you contract your back, you're probably not going to open up and relax it. So how do we bring our lats out? Well, we shift our shoulders forward. Okay, so it's simple. Shift your shoulders forward. My back is now wide. Well, it's not, but it's as wide as it's going to get. But that's how I do it. So when I do a lat spread and I bring my shoulders back, I've now lost my lats because I'm focusing on contracting my back. So what people need to do, roll their shoulders forward, drop them down, back is nice and wide, place hands, bang. That's it. And then there's little intricacies that then make a rear lat spread different to a front lat spread, like foot position. Most people, when they do it, they don't get their hip balance right. So often you'll see people putting a leg back too far and their hips drop. So first and foremost, make sure your hips are stable. Hips need to be set. Bring your foot back as far as you need to bring it back to keep your hips stable. Don't push it out because someone said, I need to have it far. It depends on the length of your legs. Depends on how your posture is. Most people need a small step, tiny step back, keep their hips stable, activate through shoulders, and then lift your chest. By lifting your chest, you've now just fired your lower back. You'll see one of the biggest mistakes people make with a lat spread is they open up and then they don't lift. So they'll be rounded. So they'll be round and their lower back just looks washed out. They don't have a lower back. But you know, because you've seen their progress pictures, you've seen their check-ins, they have a wicked lower lat insertion. Can't see it because they're rounded. That's simply chest position. All they need to do in that position then is, I remember Rob Wardhouse saying it at one of the posing clubs, and I was like, that's such a good way of saying it. And it's put a pint glass on your chest. Open up, and then put a pint glass on your chest. Okay, now you're in the right position. And does it hurt? Yes. Then you know you're in the right position. Yeah. But that lower section of your back, if you have an exceptional back, probably going to get away with it more than most people anyway. But if you don't have an exceptional back, you've got to make sure the position is perfect. So it's chest. Open up, shoulders forward, first and foremost, shoulders forward. Then you'll be wide. That's the key for every shot. Always wide shoulders forward, and then that chest up, pint glass on your chest. That will then make you thick through your lower section. But it is very, very normal when you see people turn to the back and they don't activate that shot when you know they've got a good back. But most of the time, AJ, there, it's because they're working too hard on it and they're contracting. You know, they're tensing their back. And it's like, you just don't need to. Your back should not need to be tensed.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So next I wanted to discuss the quads briefly. So a lot of people have a hard time holding their quads in position to show separation throughout an entire round. And for example, you might be held in a front relax for quite a while if it's a big lineup, and people, step on stage like boom, and the quads separate all the way from the hip to the knee, and then 10 seconds later, it's like they've not dieted. So how do you teach people, and what's the best cues that we can use to hold the quads in position to show separation?
I think firstly, once you know how to actually contract, so let's say you already know how to contract them because you can switch them on. It's just time. It's like, go and put the kettle on. Keep your legs switched on for the whole of the time while the kettle's boiling. Just do it every time you put the kettle on. When you're stood in the kitchen, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning and before you go to bed at night, switch your legs on. It is very much a muscle group that is hard to keep on unless you constantly keep practicing it. Now, you will have a problem when you're in deep in prep because obviously the fatigue and the accumulation of fatigue. Yes. And I have people moaning to me all the time, oh, but my legs are so tired. So, do you want them to look good on stage? Yeah, well, just do it then. Oh, but I just don't care. Like, you're asking me, how can I keep my legs switched on? You just need to practice, 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 practice. Now, how do you switch them on is fundamental, because you need to be able to switch them on without, again, contradiction here. You don't want to be squeezing them, because that's just energy sapping. You need to find a position with your body, with your setup, that enables you to contract your legs with less effort. Okay, a couple of little tips. If you're stood upright, it's going to be really hard to contract your legs and keep them on. You'll switch them on, you won't keep them on. So first and foremost, you need to push your hip back. In all your shots, you tilt your hips back. That enables you then to contract through your hip flexor. So switch your hip flexor on, don't switch your quads on. If you switch your hip flexor on, it will switch your quads on. But you're not focusing on actually switching your sweep on. You're not actually focusing on switching and squeezing your legs. You're switching your hip flexor on. It translates. It comes down. The tension will come down. That's less energy consuming straight away. However, then you can do little things like foot position. This doesn't work for everyone, but it works for a lot of people. Lifting your big toe. If you lift your big toe, push your hip back, lift your big toe, it'll switch your quads on. So one of the things we do as well in posing clubs and posing sessions is teach people to pose with less effort. How can I, self-preservation, how can I be on stage and not die? So how can I pose and keep things switched on without looking like I can see you doing it there now. When you stood up, it's easier. But it is about little things. Little things make huge differences. I remember, and I know he won't mind me saying, Dan Sutcliffe came for a posing session with me. He came 5th at the Southern BMBF novice class.
Okay.
He went on to win the British novice class and
I remember him. Yeah, shorter lad. Yeah.
He won best wheels as well that day. He came for a posing session with me. I hadn't been coaching him. He came to his polygraph test, and I put a post out saying, whilst you're at your polygraph, I'm doing posing sessions. He came along. He didn't know how to engage his legs. He'd never seen his quads before, as in he just, and he was like, I just can't switch them on. 2 little cues. And he looked in the mirror and he laughed. He just, of course, like, it was only literally 2 things I just said. Push your hips back first, lift your toe up, and squeeze through. And he just looked and went. And it was literally as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's because of me he won best wheels, but it is.
Yeah. Because
I did tell him it was because of me. But no, it's little. So quads, switching them on stage, practice. Learn how to switch them on first and foremost. Don't use your whole quad to contract. Just use those 2 stimuluses, both ends, hip flexor and toe. Lift your toe, push your hip flexor back, switch your legs on, and don't squeeze too hard. Just create tension, but don't absolutely drain them of energy. And then just practice.
Fantastic. All right. So moving on to transitions. So I know you're a big fan of transitions and making your whole stage presence look immaculate, from the front relaxed to the most muscular. And you see a lot of people, and for the listeners, if you've not been to a bodybuilding show, transition is essentially how you move from pose to pose and make that look fluid. So what advice have you got for people to start building transitions? Do you think that this is something that is individualized and some people just do different things? Or do you think there's certain things that we can start to practice to make pose to pose look better?
think it depends on the level of your competitors. Depends on the level you are. I personally don't think it's important.
Okay.
Because when you walk out on stage, let's categorize it. Is it important for you? Yeah. Like if I was coaching you posing, I want your transitions to be perfect, because that's your level. You're at that level where it should be. I expect it from you because it looks more professional.
Yep.
It looks like you've put the work in. It will make you stand out. It will make a difference, because let's be honest, the best guy in the show is probably going to win, even if he's not that good at posing. The worst guy is probably still going to lose, even if his posing is the best out of everyone, because that's bodybuilding. It's about our physiques. What we do in between and how we create those shapes does make a difference. It makes a difference from everyone in the middle. Now, if you want to be the top guy will be transitioning, but it's at that level that you want to work at. So entry level, just work on the poses. Just turn and hit the pose. Don't overcomplicate it. You're probably going to be crapping yourself on stage anyway. You're probably going to be rushing things. So my most important thing when people transition is slow down. Slow everything down. Do everything at your own pace. Don't worry about the guy next to you hitting his shot straight away. He might look crap. You don't know. You need to take your time. For me, transition is very, very important, because I was always in that middle pack. I'm always going to be that middle pack. I need to stand out. I need to be pushing up to the top of the pack, not edging down to the bottom of the pack. So for me, moving up the ranks in bodybuilding, for me, I quickly recognized that I needed to do things perfectly. I needed to stand out. I needed to make the most of my physique, because I'm never going to have the best physique. So for me, transition was something that I felt important, and I feel it's more important the higher up the ranks you go, because it's expected of you. How to transition? Transition is very much taking the foot off the gas, controlling your tension whilst you turn, and then contracting into your position and then switching back on. That is a transition. Let's say you're in a front double bicep shot. You hit your shot, you're switched on. You're called a lat spread. You cannot keep that same amount of tension from a front double all the way through into a lat spread. You've got to shake out, bang, relax, keep things switched on whilst losing contraction. Then you transition in, lift, break your pose down. If you break your pose down into format, feet, hips, chest, arms. That's pretty much how every pose goes, right?
Yeah.
Every pose goes the same. So have that in your head. When you walk in to do a deadlift, you have a pattern. You should have a pattern on every pose. And it normally sets out feet, hips, chest, arms. Work through that. And you can transition like that. So simple quarter turn. Quarter turn to the right, right foot moves, left arm comes across, back, show your shoulders. You've now got a transition. You've moved 3 things. You're not the guy doing 15 steps on stage to get in position. You've moved right foot, you've moved, you've moved left arm, you've brought shoulders back, bang, done. So that's how you break down a transition. You create a pattern, and you can do that for every single pose.
All right, fantastic. So pretty much the final segment of questions that I want to ask is more relevant to routines. We've not got too much to cover here. We could talk for a while, but I want to make it quite basic. So in terms of the posing routine itself, when do you think people should start building their routines? How far out from their show? And yeah, let's start with that question. How far out should we start routines?
How good do you want it to be?
Very good. Let's say people want to putt. People want to demonstrate something that's, enough to obviously not sway a decision, but make themselves look like someone they want to be judged if we go into a tough decision?
Yeah, I think it depends on how important it is to you.
That's true. That's really true. That's a great point.
And for me, it's always really important. Like, it sounds bizarre, but I do routines now for like next time I compete. I don't even know when I'm going to compete.
Yeah.
I hear a song and I do a routine to it, and I see how that song might work. I have a playlist. Yeah, I like that one. It's straight in my playlist for posing options.
Yeah.
Because it's that important to me. We'll then go down to the other end of the spectrum. I've got clients that don't even choose their own song because it's so irrelevant. The posing song is irrelevant for a lot of people because it's not going to be a routine. It's going to be a set of poses with music in the background.
Mm.
Because you're being judged on your physique, not on your ability to dance. So for me, it's 100% important. It's the best part of my day. I love it. So I'm already practicing now. When I'm in comp prep, how many weeks out are you now?
22 this weekend.
My routine's done.
Ready, yeah. I can imagine it would be, yeah.
Like, not only is it done, I'm doing it every day to perfect it, because I might, in that 22 weeks leading up, I might lose a shot because I was like, it doesn't quite work. I thought I'd look good in that shot.
Yeah.
I'm not actually that happy with it. So
Yeah.
I scrapped it and I put a different one in. But the fundamentals of it, the basics of it is done. 22 weeks out, I know what song. I've practiced it daily. I've done it I've videoed it. I'm critiquing it. First, probably 5 or 6 weeks, it's probably changed 10 times, but little bits. Because I know what poses, I know what poses look good on me now. You should know what poses look good on you. People who don't pose that well, or people who, how do I say this? People who, for some people, it's not important. They just need to hit some good shots.
Yeah.
They just need to choose their best 8 shots. Forget the music's even there. Because for some people, it's not going to be the biggest difference. For you, level of experience goes up. As a pro, your routine should be bang on. You do see some pros that are very average routines, but that's probably because it's not that important to them.
Mm.
And I do think federation makes a difference as well.
Okay.
Is it being judged? And like what anyone says, some federations don't judge the routines. And you can see that they don't because they're not paying attention when the routines are being done. So you can say whatever you want about, do PCA judge routines?
I don't actually know, to be honest.
There's no one looking at them.
Yeah.
So
Probably not.
It's like half the judges go for a wee when the routines start.
Oh, no.
So for me, but on a personal level, if you want to be the bodybuilder that you want to be, I think routine is very important. And I would have already nailed it by now. I'd be pretty much close to a finished article.
Yeah.
But also, it's different as well because this year there's only one show, Yeah. But I would always do a different routine for every show.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's something that I'm learning as well. I think being able to be creative and create something new for each show and stand out a little bit more. And ultimately, I think it's a case of like the reason why I think my routine matters to me is because I want to look professional. I want to look like I'm nailing every element of competition. And I feel like even if it is not judged, it is part of the competition. It is part of the day and it matters. So yeah, I've got the structure of it there, the songs there, and the structure of the poses. But like you said, there's a few that I'm not sure that, like, I haven't included a front lat spread. But when I'm lean, front lat spread is actually quite a good pose for me. Now it is awful. It's probably one of the worst front lat spreads I've ever seen in my life. and that is just down to my waist. And I just for some reason, I just don't connect with my back anywhere near as much as I do when I'm lean. I'm sure everyone's pretty similar, but I just don't connect with it. So yes, I think
in terms of connection, AJ, you should be just creating shape right now.
Yeah.
Like it's so not important. It's not important to have that connection right now. It's like, why do I pose with, when I'm practicing my routines, I'm not setting legs.
Okay.
I'm just practicing how those poses actually look. I'm going to set my legs later. I'm going to set them eventually. But when you start breaking it down, you're not really creating much tension. But then when you strip down and look at it, then you create tension. Then you start setting it. You will see. But you can then dip in and out of poses as you get closer. When you're 5 weeks out, you'll know whether that lat spread's going to be in or not.
Yeah. Agreed. Awesome. I think that's all of my questions pretty much done. Is there anything else that you particularly wanted to add, or do you feel like that's, for at least for now, we can obviously have another discussion if we feel like we've missed anything, but do you feel like we've covered pretty much everything that would be good for a baseline podcast on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most fundamental thing with posing is, and I think this is the thing that people make the biggest mistakes, is they work too hard. I know I did say that earlier on, but just to kind of really make it pivotal.
Yeah.
When you're practicing your posing, you don't need to be balls out. You do need to relax. If you are relaxed, you are going to look better. Have you ever, people listening would have heard the word, that guy really pops on stage, when he hits that shot, he really pops. And that is referring to the transition between tension and real tension. If you want to pop on stage, okay, we'll use you as an example. When you hit a front double bicep shot, do you want people to notice how much you brought your arms up?
Yeah.
What you need to do, you need to draw attention to that. You need to hit your shot in a semi-relaxed position and then hit it. Let me see it change. Let me see it pop. Shit, AJ's brought his arms up. That's how you create that illusion on bodybuilding stage. So when you work too hard, if you're already tense, moving into your position, you won't see a difference. You won't see a pop. So I think that's the take home for me with posing. Relax, learn to move your feet, learn to relax through your transitions, only tense when necessary, self-preservation, enjoy your posing, and practice.
Fantastic. Awesome, Darren. I think this has been an awesome podcast. I've really enjoyed it. It's always great to hear from you, and I hope the listeners have taken away some good stuff as well. I'm sure they have. Right. So finally, just for anyone that does not follow you at the moment, or perhaps is interested in inquiring either for coaching or for posing, where can they find you and where can they reach you?
So on Instagram, I am coach_DSL. And on Facebook, I am Darren Loxton, natural bodybuilder.
Okay, cool. And do you have an email at all if people wish to use email? I'm sure they'd contact you on there, but what's your email address?
Sure, it's Darren Loxton, that's LOXTON, @hotmail.com. Okay. But any DMs, and I'm very, very happy just to answer questions. If you've got a question, I get them daily. Just, you don't have to be being coached by me. You don't have to be a client. I have people inquiring, just little questions, just send them over. I'm happy to get back to anyone.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Darren's always been super helpful if ever I've had any questions or something to ask. And I've sent clients Darren's way for posing, and I always will do because I know you do a fantastic job. So we'll end that there. Thanks, guys, for listening, and we will speak in the next episode. Cheers, guys.